Good evening and thank you for joining us. Shock and outrage were expressed at a neighborhood meeting in Kaministiquia last night regarding Hydro One's preferred route for the Waasigan transmission line.
The new high-voltage line between Thunder Bay, Atikokan, and Dryden is moving forward in the planning phase, but many rural residents fear they may lose their homes to the route. Kurt Black reports.
And we're going to be a member of the community, just like any other, any other building or business. We want to be a good neighbor.
That comment last week from Hydro One's Daniel Leviton is in stark contrast to the stories that were shared Wednesday night at the Kaministiquia Community Center, as over 50 area residents came together to voice their displeasure with the proposed Waasigan transmission line project.
The picture that we received shows the line going directly through the foundation of my brand new house. That was our retirement plan.
We're not going to let them take our land, our property, our home away from us.
The line through our property has made it so we have no choice if this project goes ahead. We are going to have to relocate.
Ian Pisey is just one of a number of residents who will be forced to move if the project goes ahead as planned, as the proposed route will go right through the home he and his wife had planned on spending their retirement in.
I think they need to be aware of the human cost of somebody sitting in front of a computer in 905 or 519 and drawing a line on a map. And I think by having this session tonight, we're going to collect that information from these people to show what that human cost is.
The meeting's organizer, Michelle Hammer, whose 100-year-old family homestead also falls on the preferred route, was shocked by just how many families had until recently been left in the dark by Hydro One.
We were not properly disclosed to. A lot of people didn't even know until they looked online and they saw a line running through their house and their barn. So that's not acceptable.
Amongst all the emotion Wednesday night, former lawyer David Airyu was on hand to share his expertise in dealing with large corporations and believes as long as the community remains a united front, they'll have a fighting chance at protecting their land.
People are so aggravated, they got together and vented tonight. There was a lot of emotion going off. And once that gets sifted off, then it's my job to make the recommendations as to strategy. So it's a good beginning. It's as good as you could get. I mean, the horror stories, you couldn't ask for better ones.
Hammer says the group will continue to meet until another route through their community can be found, and says residents wanting to learn more can reach out through the Neighbors on the Line Facebook page. In response to the complaints, Hydro One issued a statement saying the utility remains committed to ongoing, meaningful, and open engagement with residents and communities. Kurt Black, TBT News.
Last night was the third of 4 budget deliberation meetings for City Council. The Thunder Bay Police Service was under the microscope. The service is proposing a multi-million-dollar increase to its budget. Council signaled its support for the added spending with an acknowledgement that further increases are unsustainable without additional government support. Here's Vasilios Bellos.
It's a big request from the Thunder Bay Police Service, proposing a 7.2% budget increase, equating to $3.5 million.
I'm confident what we're proposing from you is we'll get our job done at a bare minimum. There's not one piece of, I'll call it fluff.
Acting Chief Dan Taddeo provided a presentation to Council during Wednesday's budget meeting, calling their proposal reactive rather than proactive. It includes an expansion of 20 full-time staff, 14 being sworn-in officers, which police say will combat rising costs of overtime and WSIB. Staffing is the largest contributor to the increase, with $1 million covering the new hires and $2 million going to rising wages and benefits.
Everything's an economy of scale for us, but except for the crime and the societal issues that we deal with. That is the issue here. And I think that's very difficult, with all due respect, for a lot of people to wrap their heads around with what we're dealing, given the size of our police service.
The increase did not faze City Council members, who are more than supportive of the proposed police budget, many offering their thanks to the service.
There's absolutely no doubt on anybody's mind that we are underfunded.
Councillor Albert Aiello took it one step further, asking for a report from administration that would outline how the city could better lobby the provincial government for police and social services funding, receiving support from his fellow councillors.
We need to move forward. We need to put pressure on the government. This hasn't gotten better, and it continues. The issue continues to grow.
It sends a message, a political message, that we are looking for help, and we really have to establish Thunder Bay as being viewed as a regional hub.
Wednesday's budget meeting left the proposed tax levy hike relatively untouched, currently sitting at 6.6% before growth and 6% after. It sets up what should be a very interesting meeting next Tuesday, when administration will propose recommendations on how to bring the levy down to 4%, which would require about $4.5 million in spending cuts or increased revenue. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
More than 8 years after the murder of William Wapoose at Chapels Park, one of the accused has been convicted of the crime. The attacker, who was a youth when the homicide occurred, appeared in court today to hear the judge's verdict. Wapoose was 32 years old when his body was found on September 3, 2014, near a bike path at the south end of the Chapels Park Drive. The post-mortem determined he died as a result of blunt force injuries to his head and a stab wound to the neck. No arrests were made until May of 2019, when police charged 2 young men with second-degree murder. One of the suspects, 26-year-old Jonathan Massicott, stood trial last year, but a jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict. A retrial before Judge Alone is scheduled for next month. And today, a judge ruled the other suspect, a young offender who's now in his 20s, is guilty of manslaughter. A sentencing hearing is expected to be held in the spring. The full details of the case and the verdict can be found on tvnewswatch.com.
A 21-year-old Pikangikum First Nation man has been arrested for assaulting a security guard and a police officer at an Arthur Street hotel overnight. The man allegedly attacked and further threatened a security guard after being asked to leave the hotel property around 2:30 this morning. He's also accused of attacking one of the arresting officers when they arrived on scene. The security guard was taken to hospital for treatment, while the officer was uninjured. The accused has been remanded into custody.
A 28-year-old local man has been slapped with dangerous and impaired driving charges after allegedly running a red light and hitting an unmarked police vehicle. It happened yesterday afternoon at the busy intersection of Arthur and James Streets. The accused driver was taken to hospital and was later found to be impaired by alcohol and drugs. Police seized crack cocaine and hydromorphone. The accused has been released with conditions and a future court date.
Thunder Bay Regional has received a significant boost for its efforts to fill vacancies on its nursing staff. The new Community Commitment Program for nurses approved more than 70 grants for the hospital. Incoming nurses receive a $25,000 incentive if they commit to work to the hospital for at least 2 years. Mike Lang explains.
Entry-level nurses will be more incentivized to join Thunder Bay Regional staff thanks to the new Community Program for nurses. The NCPN grants will provide over 70 new hires with $25,000 in addition to their salary for committing to a 2-year full-time position at the Health Sciences Center. Vice President Janine Verdnick says these incentives will help attract candidates to the hospital and overcome some of the challenges associated with recruiting them.
These funds will help us to address some of the barriers that we have in recruiting. Like most hospitals, recruitment and retention incentives to keep our health human resources going at optimal levels is a struggle, and having this grant is really great.
To be eligible for the $25,000 grant, certified candidates must not have been employed as a nurse within the last 6 months. They must also not be simultaneously receiving funds from the Ministry of Health or tuition support programs, and they must begin their employment by March 2024. Verdnick adds that the grants will also help address the fluctuating nature of nurse vacancies at the Health Sciences Center.
Things like this CCPN is a good opportunity to attract people to the hospital. It gives an incentive, and it also provides our hospital with some stability in that in order to qualify for the CCPN, people need to give us a 2-year commitment.
Already 5 new hires have qualified for grants in 2023, and the hospital is currently in the process of interviewing 75 RN candidates. They'll be looking at registered practitioner candidates starting in February, and then graduates out of school once the academic semesters end in April. Mike Lang, TBT News.
Ontario's top doctor says there's been a decline in RSV, flu, and COVID activity across the province, but there's concern over COVID-19 vaccine misinformation and how that's affected the healthcare system. Siobhan Morris reports.
After a triple whammy of respiratory illnesses that challenged Ontario and its hospitals, the province's top doctor feels the worst is behind us. The flu season peaked earlier than usual in late November, early December.
We reached a peak of around 560 at that time on any given day. We're down to 80 individuals now in hospital.
Cases of RSV that sickened thousands of kids have also been steadily declining. Dr. Kieran Moore says COVID is stable, but he's watching what happens with the more transmissible Kraken subvariant,
which may cause a rise in admissions to hospital. I don't want anyone in Canada or Ontario to think that we're going to stop our efforts to try to limit the spread of this virus.
With vaccines, staying home if you're sick, and wearing a mask in crowded indoor places. The Council of Canadian Academies estimates COVID misinformation has contributed to the deaths of some 2,800 Canadians and $300 million worth of hospital visits.
We still have gaps in providing reliable information to Ontarians to make sure that they make informed decisions. And I'm not happy at present with our current coverage rates and our level of protection.
With boosters for older Ontarians more vulnerable to severe outcomes from COVID. Dr. Moore says 3 million people have rolled up their sleeves for a bivalent booster, but just 55% of Ontarians aged 70 and older, only 40% of those between 60 and 69. While the drive to get more shots into arms rolls on, Friday, the World Health Organization decides if COVID-19 still constitutes a public health emergency of international concern.
I hope they still communicate that COVID will still continue to be around and will continue to disproportionately impact more vulnerable individuals or vulnerable populations.
And will still challenge our healthcare sector. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Indigenous Law and Justice Institute at Lakehead University's Bora-Alaskan Faculty of Law unveiled its new Anishinaabemowin name at a ceremony today.
So the name is the Minnow Wabandan Inoknagewinin Indigenous Law and Justice Institute, which means basically seeing the law in a good way.
That new name was bestowed on the institution by Elder Ron Linklater during a naming ceremony last August. There's also a new logo featuring a Thunderbird. It was designed by local Anishinaabe artist Ryan Puman and represents power, protection, and strength. Co-directors Robin Sutherland and Larissa Speak say the name and logo reflect the important work the Institute is doing with communities to revitalize Indigenous laws and legal orders.
We've been doing a lot of work with the Institute since April 2021, and so just really solidifying our identity, our mission, vision, having a name and a logo, it really kind of solidifies our brand, I think.
From an Anishinaabe perspective, it's important to do everything in a good way, and so I think especially when we're in a Western institution, it's a reminder for all of us to conduct our work from an Anishinaabe perspective as much we can and just bring that teaching into everything the Institute does.
Tomorrow, the Institute will host an all-day Indigenous Law Conference at the PACI building.
Excavation crews have been busy relocating the sliding hill at Chapels Park to make way for an indoor tennis facility. The new sliding hill should be in place at month's end, but anyone hoping to try it out will have to wait for some help from Mother Nature first.
I think we're going to need 10, 15 centimeters at least over the bare soil to make it slidable, but I know kids sometimes in the fall it snows 1 or 2 centimeters, but that's usually our grass, right? Not bare soil.
Over the past 3 weeks, excavators have been digging up the old sliding hill and filling dump trucks that travel around 300 meters to the new location. There, they dump the rocks and dirt to create what will soon be the new sliding hill at Chapels Park. City Parks planner Warner Schwar says preparations have been carried out to make parking and finding the hill easy for the public.
For this year, it will be the parking on the side of the road where the soccer fields are, so right across from where the overflow parking lot is. And then we've removed some of the berms that were in front of the overflow parking lot, so it'll be a lot more visible now as to where the hill is.
Once completed, the new sliding hill will be bigger and offer greater protection from the wind.
Well, Fiona, people could have used any protection from the wind they could have gotten, especially this morning. We saw Werner Schwab bundled up there. It was a chilly one today.
That was just cold just looking at it. That's because the day started off with a low of -20 and wind chills of -27. Unfortunately, that's kind of normal for this time of year. We did warm up to -12, which is only a few degrees below normal, and a wind chill of -15. Actually, as the day progressed, winds have been fairly light for most of the day, just 10 to 15 kilometers per hour from the southwest. But when it's that cold, any wind feels very chilly. Now, if we take a look at what's going on throughout the region, mostly cloudy in Fort Frances. They're currently at -12, and wind chills are hovering around -16. We've got similar temperatures as we head further north into Kenora and Dryden at -13. Red Lake matching that. They've had snow all day, but unfortunately, the winds are a little bit more brisk, and wind chills are currently hovering around -20 at this hour, so it does feel a lot colder to the northwest. As we head eastward into Sioux Lookout, we're at -14, -17 in Armstrong, -19 in Greenstone. They currently have a wind chill of -24, but believe it or not, that's an improvement over last night's wind chill of -33, and they've had a lot of increasing clouds, so they're expecting to see some precipitation soon. Now, warms up a little bit as you head into Nipigon at -16, -14 in Marathon. Sault Ste. Marie has been holding steady at about -6 for about the last 12 hours solid. There was almost no wind, very minimal wind chill. It was just in the afternoon. They saw some light snow move in, and the wind chill kicked in with those gusty winds, making it feel like -13 at this hour. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, well, it's not going to be as cold as last night, -17, but wind chills will still feel like -22, and we are expecting a little bit of light snow, basically just some flurries, not a whole lot of snowfall to have to get up and shovel early. But this is just the beginning of a system that is moving in. It is fairly large. It's going to move in from the west, and we are in that pocket of potentially some fairly heavy snow. Good news is it does move through very quickly, so it's not going to sit and dump snow all day. Unfortunately, once it moves out, we have some very cold winds that are going to follow that will bring temperatures down and cause wind chills to plummet, and I'll have more details on that later on in the news hour.
Sounded good there for a second. Fiona.
It really
was
did.
Move out quickly, but then we're just going to get hit again.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Well, Canada has become the latest Western nation to commit tanks to Ukraine, but it's a comparatively small commitment, just 4 tanks going over. We'll have all those details as your news hour continues.
They have a much larger gun on them than a lot of other cases, so they can pack a bigger punch.